This is my presentation on women's rights and abortion. So, some insight on my presentation is that yes, it's on abortion, but it's mainly on the angle of a woman's right to choose, because that's the main issue that's being declared in this current civil rights problem. So, as we know, Roe v. Wade was overturned a few months ago, and this took away the right of the federal government to decide whether abortion should be legal or not. Before the federal government, they believed that abortion is legal and that it's allowed in the entire country. Women were allowed to choose if they wanted to have an abortion or not. They were allowed to choose for their bodies. Now, as we know, the stance on abortion is very 50-50, if you would say. After Roe v. Wade was overturned, this gave the state's individual government to decide whether abortion is legal in that state. So some states like California, Connecticut, Washington D.C., not Washington State, or states like that, they would choose that abortion is legal. But states like Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, all these southern states don't believe that abortion should be legal. They have a much more conservative point of view, and this affects women all throughout the U.S. because some women they can't have an abortion, or they have to cross state lines to get an abortion. As I said before, states have very different views on abortion. Oklahoma and California is a really great example of one. Oklahoma is a state that has banned abortion and that they are extremely pro-life. This is pretty common down in the South, and Oklahoma is one of the more radical states that with abortion. Their governor, Kevin Stitt, signed a bill that bans abortion after a woman is 6 weeks pregnant, which for some that would mean, oh no, they're still allowing abortions. But if you think about it, women don't find out if they're pregnant until after 6 weeks. So it contradicts abortion in a way. They can get an abortion, but they can only get an abortion if they don't know they're pregnant in a way. So it doesn't really help. That's just one of the ways that Oklahoma is trying to further ban abortion in a way. The governor has made multiple tweets saying that he wants to make Oklahoma one of the most pro-life states in the entire U.S., which for some people that works, and for some others it doesn't work. California, although it's a very opposite state. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, California didn't change their views that the federal government put on them. They still protect the woman's rights. That's their top priority, to make sure that a woman has the right to an abortion. They didn't really change or add any restrictions or any laws like that. That ever since Roe v. Wade was overturned, they didn't do anything like that. And it's one of the most pro-choice states in the entire U.S. They believe that a fetus is just cells. They don't really believe that it's alive or anything like that. But then Oklahoma, they do believe that a fetus is alive after a certain period of time, which is a very short period of time. So these two states are great examples of how completely opposite they are in their views on abortion. So the first branch of government I'm going to be talking about is the legislative branch. So after Roe v. Wade was overturned, this allowed the states to control their laws on abortion. For example, some states banned abortion, some states didn't ban abortion, some states just made it harder to have an abortion, and some states didn't really change anything at all. The federal government lost their power to control whether abortion should be legal or not in the entire country, and it's now separated. Multiple states are divided whether to protect or take away a woman's rights to an abortion, but 13 states have banned abortion, and it's now illegal to have one, meaning some people have to cross state lines. Many companies, such as Nike and many famous companies, many big companies, what they are doing is they'll pay their employees to get an abortion cross state lines, which is something that many companies have been doing to quote unquote fight abortion restrictions. 11 states have put heavy restrictions on abortion, such as a limit to how long a fetus is viable. Some states it's 15, multiple is 22, and I believe that no state has ever had a limit to that there is no state with no limit to how long you can get an abortion with. The judicial court didn't really do any small things on abortion. They just had made big changes, such as in January 22nd in 1973, the Supreme Court came to an agreement unanimously that abortion is a woman's right, as a woman's right to get an abortion is a federal law, that the entire federal government controls that every state will has to enforce that law, that the federal government has to enforce a state that, yes, a woman may have an abortion, it is her right. But as of recently, Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization made it that the federal government no longer has control of that. That now the Supreme Court came to an agreement that the state governments, individual state governments, now have their own right to whether an abortion is illegal or not, which obviously has become very controversial. The executive branch is pretty simple if you think about it. President Joe Biden is a Democrat, and he doesn't support abortion. What he supports is a woman's right to choose. He said it himself that as a Catholic, he doesn't believe, he would never want an abortion for his family or anything like that, but he supports a woman's right to choose to have an abortion, which are two very different things, which I believe is a very common misconception that many people have. Supporting a woman's right to an abortion does not mean that you are in favor to an abortion. You are in favor of a woman choosing what to do with her body, which is a very different thing to compare to saying, oh yes, I support abortion. People support women's rights most of the time. He has called for many pushes to Congress to protect female reproductive rights. He's trying his best in a way, the executive office is trying its best in a way to make sure that the federal government has control again of the abortion stance, if women are allowed or if it's illegal to have an abortion or not, instead of the states deciding their stances on abortion. The media is very tricky if you think about it on their stances on abortion. The media doesn't have a stance on abortion. There's just separate media sources that have their views and stuff like that. The two biggest ones are clearly CNN and Fox News. Two, again, very opposite news sources. One is left-sided, one is right-sided. CNN, when I looked at the interviews and all those videos on abortion, CNN is more on the scientific and medical side. They believe in a woman's right to choose, and they believe more in a woman's health issues. So if a woman's life was in danger, because if she gave birth, is it okay to have an abortion or not? So they usually talk to medical experts and scientists in their discussion on abortion. Fox News, on the other hand, is a right-sided news source, which is they are much more against abortion. When I looked at their videos, they seemed to have more emotion when they spoke about it. They were more angered in a way. They believe that a fetus is alive and it's a person and it deserves rights just like anybody else. They have a much more angered point of view when you think about it, because they are in a much more traditional and much more religious, I guess. Well, not religious, but they tend to believe more in that. Well, yes, religious. I'll say that they believe more that abortion is quote unquote sin off quote, that they believe it's bad in a way, and that they believe that God has put a child here for a reason. I know they'll never say that in a way, but you can very clearly see it. But yeah, this is my presentation on abortion, most specifically on a woman's right to her body, to her choice, and all that. So yep.